mean by that is that لا يخالفه راويه فالعمل بما رأى لا بما روى. If the narrator does not work otherwise. ألا يكون مما تعم به البلوى فإن عموم البلوى. He said also another condition is that it should be like an incident. It's not like something that everybody in Medina needed to know that pertains to the life of people. And then we have a hadith that's narrated by one Sahabi or two Sahabi. Because he said if this is the case, and that's logic, if this is the case, everybody would need to know the ruling about that, and it would become very famous that all the Sahaba or majority of the Sahaba, people of Medina, would know about it, not only one and two. That's also logic. وَأَلَّا يُخَالِفَ الْقِيَاسِ. He said the khabar al-wahid, a narration of a single person or a small group of people would be accepted according to him if it's not against what is established in the Sharia. The Sharia, the Shara Islam gives us a rule. It's not like he would say a black computer is good, you can buy it, but a green computer is. I mean, there is no sense. Sharia would not give you things that's not. There's no sense in it. We have rules. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will make haram some transactions. Why? Because it's not clear what are you selling, what are you buying. It involves some kind of ambiguity in there. It involves some kind of injustice. So Sharia gives us rules. He said, if we have a text or a hadith that's narrated by one person or a small group of people, that's not to the level of a tawatur, and it's against one of the established rules of Islam, then he said, I'm not going to accept it. He's not because he rejects the hadith of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but because for him the rule is established. It's not easy to shake that until you have something that is really, really strong. فإذا توفرت الشروط, if the conditions are there, he would accept it. And let me give you an example here. There is a very, very authentic hadith al-Musarra. It's an example that would make it probably easy for us to understand. Musarra is an animal that the owner of this animal goes to the market. He's trying to sell this animal, and probably the people who from rural areas or then farmers or something who came from things like that, they will know what I'm talking about. They will leave the cow, not milk it for a day or two, maybe 3 days, so it will have a lot of milk. The breast of the cow will be like really big. When you take it to the market, the buyer would look at it and would think, oh my God, that cow or that she-goat can give like 5 gallons of milk every day or something. But that's not the reality. The reality is that it gives just like a gallon or something or 2. But what happened is the owner just left it, not milk it for 2 or 3 days, and milk becomes so much in it. So, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if that happened to somebody, if you get it like that, you buy a cow and then or a goat, she-goat, and you figure out later on that it gives much less milk than the seller was showing you. What you're supposed to do? He said, you may take it. Its decision is up to the buyer. You may take it, accept it, and you have the right to return it. But in this case, you return wasa'an min tamr. You return an amount of tamr, obviously in place of the milk that you have used, right? So Imam Abu Hanifa did not accept this hadith, even though it's so authentic. Why he didn't accept this hadith? He said it's mukhalif lil qiyas. It's against a rule that has been established in Islam. What is the rule? The rule is if somebody damaged something, if I damage, la qaddar Allah, Allah forbid, this computer, let's get it here. I don't need to, inshallah, it's not going to happen. It's Brother Hussein's anyway. So if I damage this computer, in Islam, what should I do? So it belongs to Brother Hussein, and I damage, let's say intentionally. What does Islam tell me to do? Either one or two things. Either one or two things. One of them is what you're talking about is replace it with something similar to it, or fix it. That comes under replacement. I mean, get it back to the same shape, fine. But let's say it's gone completely. So do I give him an Apple computer, Mac or something? That's an Asus in here. So I give him what I'm obliged to. I can give him a better computer, fine. if I like to do that. But what I'm required to do is at least a computer similar to it or in the same category. That's one. Or number two, the price. That's equal $500. I give him $500. Right? This is the rule in there. So he said, in this case, this milk is not known. The amount of milk is not known that this person consumed. So what he has to give back is the same amount of milk or the price of that milk. But somebody gets a cow, somebody gets a big sheep or a small sheep, and then the amount of milk is going to be different. How are you going to make what I have to return always the same, which is fixed amount of dates? So he said this is against the rule. It's against the rule of Islam. Did you get it? So the rule of Islam, now I took some milk for 2 or 3 days from this cow. But the problem is this milk is not known. It could be in one case 1 gallon, it could be in another case 20 gallons. But then the hadith is, authentic hadith is telling us you could give it back with a limited, an exact amount saw, which is 4 handfuls, like 4 handfuls of dates in all of these cases, which is not equal to the same amount of milk at every time. So he said that's against the qiyas. The person, what he should do is pay the value or give this exact same amount or close to it amount of milk, because this is against the qiyas. That's one example that he said. Obviously, the other scholars believe no. This is the hadith authentic from the Prophet ﷺ. He should give it back, and there shouldn't be much argument about that. And he is actually giving that back, and they argued like that. Now, if I get this cow and I have it for a day or two, I buy it from him, I paid him the price, and then until I figure out that it produces much less milk, it stayed with me for a day or two. Let's say it died. Man yadmanuha? Who is liable to that? Man yadmanuha? Who loses in this case? If it dies, the buyer or the seller? The buyer, right? Yes. There is a hadith, al-kharaju bid-daman. So if it becomes fully in your position in such a way that you can sell it, you can resell it. If it dies, it's going to be on you. Then whatever comes from it should be yours as well in return, because you have the daman, or you have the liability, or it's yours. So that you are qualified to that. And then the only thing is the date that you are giving to that person. The date that you are giving to that person is in return for the milk that was already there and that happened to be there from the time that this animal was in the position of the seller, right? But what you get later on, which is extra, that's completely yours. That was just an example meant to clarify how does Imam Abu Hanifa or Madhab al-Hanafi deals with khabar al-ahad. Imam Abu Hanifa, his madhab, his school of thought, what makes it special also, توسع في الأخذ بالقياس. He depended very much on the qiyas. What is qiyas? Analogical deduction. What's an analogical deduction? القرآن الإسلام جاءنا بحالات محدودة. Quran is talking about limited or unlimited circumstances. Like it gives us limited rules. Does it have limited words, for example, and limited meanings, for example, in terms of the details, or it's unlimited? It's actually limited. Quran is talking about marriage in general, divorce in general, buying in general, selling in general. It did not talk about 501c3, did not talk about pensions and things like that. This is subcategory of transactions that will happen later on, but it falls under the big category of buying, selling, on all of these, mortgage and all of these things that's mentioned in there. So in Islam, you would find cases that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talk about it, give us the ruling. Quran, Allah in the Quran give us the ruling. But now you talk about similar cases that came later on that is not exactly mentioned in the Quran, yet we have something similar to it. So we have a case that has a ruling in Islam, have another case, it came later on, It does not have a ruling in Islam. And then scholars would say, this is exactly like this. And they have rules to say how exactly it is. And they say, if this exactly like that, then this should take the same ruling like this. This is called qiyas, and the logical deduction. Other scholars would feel much conservative, to go to qiyas, because simply you're saying, when you say a ruling, you're saying that Allah is saying that. Allah is saying this is right. Allah is saying this is wrong. So they didn't feel much comfortable to say about something Allah did not say it's right or wrong, that you just give it the same ruling. But many of them, they would resort to qiyas or analogical deduction in cases that they do not have Quran, the ruling in the Quran, the ruling in the Hadith. Sahaba did not talk about it. They wouldn't have any other option but to do that. Imam Shafi'i was the biggest or the most amongst the scholars to use this qiyas a lot. Imam Abu Hanifa, did I say Shafi'i? Imam Abu Hanifa. We said that Imam Abu Hanifa did not write his madhab himself. It was his scholars and people who came later on. One of the main books, early books of madhab Imam Abu Hanifa, al-Mabsut lis-Sarakhsi, and then everybody who came after that usually would explain that book and use it as a guide to for many other books, amongst other books that were the main books of Imam madhab Imam Abu Hanifa, Hashiyat ibn Abidin, for example, until so many other books later on appear. مصطلحات الفقه الحنفي, they use some terminology. When they say al-Imam al-A'zam, for example, in their book, the greatest Imam, they refer to obviously Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu himself. إذا قالوا أئمتنا الثلاثة, our three Imams, they refer to Abu Hanifa and his two students. Ahnaf, within the school of thought, when they say our three Imams, they refer to Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, and Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. And they have other terms, that they use in there. So that was Imam Abu Hanifa, and we don't want to make it too long. Maybe next time, inshallah, we talk about Imam Malik, and later on we talk about other scholars, inshallah. Any questions or anything to add about that?
Did you learn from the Imam, the Shia follow, Jafar? Yeah, Imam Jafar side.
Imam, I'm not sure if he was amongst his scholars, but it's not at least known. But even Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq is not, when Shia, for example, they quote Ja'far al-Sadiq, they actually misquote him. And they quote Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu a lot. He was not Shia, he was not from Ahl Bayt al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes, very respected, yes. But then the generation that came later on, it was not only him. It was not only Ali radiallahu anhu. You will say that later on, you will see, we discuss at the end of this chapter, how did the Imams behave with one another? How did the Abu Shafi'i later on would deal with the knowledge of Abu Hanifa and respect it so much, and sometimes even abandon his own view to follow Abu Hanifa. And then later on we see the followers down the road of Imam Shafi'i, the followers of Abu Hanifa, they will fight with one another. It was not the problem of the Imams, it was the problems of misunderstanding of generations that came later on. Same thing with Ja'far al-Sadiq radiallahu anhu, even for us Ahl Sunnah, one of the key Imams of Islam, but then it was misquoted by Shia.
I had an incident or a leader in Hajj was a Shia person, the Imam. And he had a discussion with another Imam in Makkah, and he asked him who taught Hanifa. And that Sheikh told him that Imam Jafar Sadiq, and he said that was my point.
His point is wrong, because Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq is Imam al-Muslimin, like Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? Imam al-Muslimin. If somebody does not respect Ali ibn Abi Talib, he is going against so many ayat and hadith, even though he is Imam, the key Imam for them, and they even for some of them gods, they call Ali. That doesn't give him, like Jesus, al-Masih alayhi salam. All of his followers nowadays, all of his followers are wrong in terms of following him. When he comes back, what will he do? That's our faith. They are wrong in terms of them thinking they are Christians. They are not true Christians. When Jesus alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam will come back, he will break the cross, and he will follow Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is his deen. That's his religion. He will be with Muslims, praying with Muslims, and that's why many of his so-called Christians, they would not accept him. They would probably fight against him. So his point is wrong because he thinks Imam Ja'far is Shia, which is wrong. Imam Ja'far is from Al al-Bayt, which is respected by us as well. No.
When they describe someone as the Sharia, that used to be referred to that he is more in love for the Arab. It was not as the Sharia right now. Shia took it and
they added politics to it, and they started. Right. So they added a lot of politics into it, and this is even how it started. They twisted a lot of rules of Islam to just serve that purpose. But Shia being like in terms of what? Loving Ahlul Bayt, taken from them? Yes, we do that. For us, even Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, he has madhab. He's one of the scholars, by the way, that has a madhab, but it was not very much served by scholars later on. In the way that the students of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i did with his madhab. But he had a kind of minor madhab in there. Yes, sir.
I much to see how authentic the story, because I know Imam Abu Hanifa, he has a famous rule. If something came or hadith or action or came to me or came to you, and I was against what I did. So throw away my opinion and follow whatever came authentic. So I wonder how come Hanifa, which is really strict to that he will say, no, how about having return it or stuff like that, or the logical way of describing.
That is, yeah, that's you're trying to. Let me clarify it more. He is not now. How he is saying is we have a rule that's been established by so many ayat, so many ahadith. It becomes a rule in Islam. Now for him, it's not that he is rejecting the words of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He is questioning that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could have said something like that, or he's questioning that the understanding is like this. Why he is doing that? Because of what the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself said in other hadith. What the Quran says, for example. So for him, now you might, even for other scholars, many times you might find two texts that are telling us two different things. There is something, there's definitely something, there. Maybe one of them is not authentic. Maybe we misunderstand that there's contradiction when there's no contradiction. But at the end of the day, you cannot do two opposite things. You will have to have some kind of jam'a between them. If there's not jam'a, scholars will talk about which one to adopt, and this is very technical in here, which one to adopt. They will look at the history, which text was later. What the Prophet ﷺ said something very close to his death, when he was old, and he said something early in his life. That means that the later would take, maybe that was the rule in the beginning of Islam, but then the one, if we know the history that this one of them came later, then that canceled or abrogates the other one. But in other cases as well, you don't know which the date of both of them, so you have to use your ilm and fiqh based on the sunnah and the hadith to give your hukm. And this is one of usul madhabi. It's not like a story. It's one of the fundamentals of his madhab, and he had a couple of few incidents like this. That was the most famous, that all other scholars would disagree with him, and they would say, no, if a hadith is authentic and come to us from the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, even if it's from one person or more, then we will go by that. But he gave his analogy otherwise. Radiallahu anhu.
One Sahabi rated it, or was carried on by the Tabi'in, by one person only?
It could be.
Considered going to be considered had, because
just like the Umar finished with the most famous, well-known hadith.
That's right. But when we say ahad, it does not mean that it's weak or anything. It's authentic. But the thing, if it is ahad and it's coming telling us something that's against one of the big rules of Islam, that's the point in here. It's not ahad. Now we're looking at something that is strong and something that is strong. They are not both at the same strength. And Abu Hanifa said, no, I'm going to go by that strong, by the bigger one, and not by the smaller one. And again, the other scholars discussed that there is no actually disagreement in there, and they give their analogy as well that this milk came from the previous owner. That's why he has to give him something. And it's يعني تعبد من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم like that anyway. So this was their take on how to derive the hukm from it, and it makes sense. Also, it makes sense if you look into it. Yeah, it makes sense because what it means to go by this hadith, you would reject the rule which was established by so many other ahadith as far as giving the value or giving the same thing. Al-kharaj bil-daman, al-ghunm bil-ghurm. This is another rule. Yes, sir.
To answer that in other way, can we not use that hadith where Rasul say that if you reach there, before you reach there, you pray Asr. And something like that happened, and some of them prayed and some didn't pray.
Exactly. That's the very famous example for understanding two different things from the same text. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he said to the group of people, the Muslims, لا يصلين, when the battle was there and the Jews were living with Muslims in Medina, they had treaties to defend Al Medina together. What happened is the enemies came, and instead of defending Al Medina along with Muslims, what happened? They allied with the enemies. So when the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, faced the enemies and everything, and Allah sent the wind against his enemy, and they are gone, they left. Now when the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, before we go home, we have to go fight against those people. We go to them, those people who betrayed us. No one shall pray Asr. Asr was about to come. He said, do not pray Asr until over there in their place. Meaning, go fast as possible. Before sunset, you're going to pray. We're going to all pray Asr there. When Asr was, Asr time was there and the sun was about to set, and a group of Sahaba were there, and they said, well, it's about Maghrib time, sun is gonna set, we didn't pray Asr yet, shall we pray or not? A group of them said, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not pray Asr except in Bani Qurayza. It's clear rule. He said, do not pray Asr. You're not gonna pray. What about the sun? Allah said what? أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس. He said, اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. Salah is being obligatory on Muslims in fixed times, like it's there. You cannot miss it within this time. So this is a rule that's established by other texts from Quran, even from the Hadith himself. أفضل الأعمال الصلاة لوقتها. Best of all actions, what is to pray in time. So they looked at those texts. What about the other texts? The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying what? Do not pray Asr except in Bani Qurayza. So one group of them said what? No, we go by what the Prophet ﷺ told us. No, we ignore all of that. And, he said, do not pray. The other group said what? No, what he really meant is not to cancel the prayer and let it go. What he really meant is what? Is hurry up as much as possible. He didn't really mean to miss Salat al-Asr. And the other, could you say that either one of them is wrong? You could follow one way and you see that this is right, but at least you can see the point of the other person. And that's what happened when Nabi Sallallahu was not there. He passed them already. When they reached to him, so the thing here is, one group decided to pray, the first group, no. He said, no, we're not going to pray. Time will go, let it go. Nabi said, do not pray. The second group said, no, we will pray right now. And they prayed. This group did not blame this group did not blame the other group. They just had a discussion, but they had to go and clear it up with the Prophet. Obviously, in the case of the scholars, it's not there anymore. The Prophet is gone. You cannot clear every disagreement between me and you, between this scholar and this scholar. You cannot go. That was the beauty being with the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Sahaba disagree about something, they just run to the Prophet. He's saying right, this is right, I'm saying wrong. What do you think? Then he will fix it. He has wahi. After him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nobody has wahi. Everybody should, practice the knowledge and try to understand the wahi. So this is a clear case. When they came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "What did you do? We prayed. What did you do? We didn't pray." He didn't say. What did he say? He didn't say anything because he couldn't say you are right or you are wrong. No, your understanding is authentic, is right. Your understanding is right, and this is a very good point in here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold us accountable on our own values in our heart. Like, deep in your heart, this is not right. And then even if all the scholars of the world tell you it's right, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable for that. Allah gives you an understanding, and this understanding is not making you feel comfortable. That's not to say ignore the scholars. No, you have to go by the scholars and everything. Well, what if he's telling me it's right, but I really don't think it's right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable for that. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the understanding that no, he didn't really mean sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that you skip asr. That's the understanding Allah has given you at this point. You have to go by it. As long as it's authentic. As long as it's authentic. And that understanding was authentic, was right. He looked at the text, and yes, the text could mean that. The other people, they looked at the text, and the text also could mean that.
Let me give you another example. Allah in the Quran says, He asked the Prophet to say, I am just like you are, except that I receive wahi. Now, those who believe that the Prophet is alive in the graveyard, and they narrate a hadith to prove that, how can one form one's own opinion about that?
And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is alive in such a way that nobody communicates with him like in a different phase of life. What that means for me and you. It's not the end, what do you say? It's not extinction. No, it's just moving from one form of life to another form of life. We live al-hayatu ad-dunya, life of earth. Then when we are in the grave, hayatul barzakh, the intermediate life or something between this life and the hereafter. Hereafter, the full, the complete form.
I am just like you are, except that I receive wahi.
That's good. That's right. There is no contradiction.
In all matters.
He is like us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We also are alive when we as far as bashariya, as far as being human being, right?
Was giving a strength equal for half of us. No, typically the Prophet is not like us.
The essence of
will be eaten by us. Our body will not decay like us. He's not like us. Physically, he's not like us.
Yeah, but they take it to
No.
They take it to a country. I know, but in Pakistan, one of those scholars.
He has physical way, he has physical way. He used to have, he can, I can stay for days and days without eating. And he's on Allah, how other people. So it's not like.
So what are the scholars saying?
right.
The scholar in Pakistan, he says that the hadith, sometimes Umar radiallahu anhu he asked, right, that what do you think about this? So he would say, Allahu a'lam wa rasuluhu. So the scholar is saying that from now on, every one of you will say the same. So it's like they take it to that extreme. Even if today you were asked to follow that hadith and say, Wallahu a'lam wa rasuluhu.
Allahu a'lam wa rasuluhu is right if you talk about shar'i rule, because of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knows the full shara.
If you were talking about something, say, Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, if you talk about something that has to do with our life, and then you say Allahu a'lam, you don't say wa rasul, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not know.
This is what the thing,
But if you talk about a rule, for example, what is the right thing as far as this, definitely the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows all the shara, so you could say, but where is your phone? If somebody, my wife is asking me, where's my phone? I can't say Allahu A'lam wa Rasuluh because the Rasul doesn't know where her phone is because he's not been given that knowledge. أصل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بشريته ثابتة. ما أنا إلا بشر مثلكم قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم. I am a human being like you. Like you. Like you means what? A human being has a father, has a mother, eats, drinks, and everything. Is he like us in everything? Obviously not. He is infallible. He doesn't make mistakes. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects him against that. When he dies, وهذه الصفات النبوية معروفة يعني that's known to all Muslims. When he dies, not only him and Anbiya, the earth does not, the body does not decay. That's something also known there in the hadith. And some other features that are known for the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and for the Prophet's khasa'is in the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he can make fasting for 2-3 days and or more, and amongst other things. But again, he is like us in terms of يعني يأكل الطعام ويمشي في الأسواق. He eats, he needs to marry, he gets married, and all of that to be a full example for us alayhi salatu wasalam. But again, taking that to extreme, like some people would leave a chair. Why would leave a chair there in the gathering? Oh, the Prophet is coming. Or I go to him, I talk to him, and he gives me a hadith or something. No, that's not right. We can see him in a dream, yes, and things like that. But in qata' al-wahy bi Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wahy, revelation, is gone from the time he sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. That was it. No more revelation. It's just what's left is the understanding of that, the ilm, the knowledge of ulama. Ulama warathatul anbiya. Scholars are the heirs or the inheritors of prophets. They don't inherit money. They don't leave behind money. They leave this knowledge, and it's meant by Allah subhanahu wa taala to be like that. So because Allah didn't create us the same, we have people who would have different needs down the time, and different times you have different needs, and Islam is very dynamic, and the rules of Islam are very dynamic, that you can derive the ahkam to be suitable to your time and everything. But it's not like there's no limits for it. No, there is limit in there, and as long as it's an authentic understanding, like this example, a couple of examples we quoted, that as long as the text could mean that should be fine, and you go by it, and that is until the day of judgment, the understanding and building on that knowledge is needed in all times and in all places. والله تعالى أعلم. آخر حاجة بقى أخونا أدهم مش مهندس.
Regarding when just a comment, is it true that the Wahy he ordered the Prophet to go meet, for when that happened, he was ordered. Is that true?
I'm not quite sure about Jibreel alayhi salam telling the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to go straight to them. Anybody's aware of that? Yes.
When he was having shower.
Oh, he said the angels did not put off their warfare. Okay.
Keep your shield on. You was still
No. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I remember that. We said that the angels did not put down their tools of war, go straight there. That's right. So it was also needed. Those people betrayed the Muslims, and that's it. That's the right way to be with people who betray. No.
Is it true that he is very strict?
It's like there's one here. No room for guessing. You want exact measurement. Exact measurement based on those things. While other now this best effort is jihad. So that's what this is not.
No, it's just schools of thought based on the rules. They first put rules to derive the ahkam, like fundamentals, like rules for you to learn English. You have to learn the alphabet, the letters, this and that, so you can be able to read. Same thing to derive the ahkam, to be able to get this ayah is talking about this. What makes me understand that it means you have to pray. We have tools to know that. The Arabic, one of them is the Arabic language. That's what the Arabic language al-amru yufid al-wujub. If Allah commands something, that means it's obligatory. So we have that is there, and we have other rules to deal with ahkam usul al-fiqh. It's called usul al-fiqh. So they built their usul. We talked about some of the usul, some of the fundamentals, basic rules of al-madhhab al-Hanafi, and based on that they will give their ahkam. Based on using those rules and those qawa'id, they will derive the ahkam. It's not that an imam is sitting and having a cup of tea and just, oh yeah, I think it should be like that, or I go by what I believe. They have rules. According to those rules, should be this, should lead to that. According to this rule, so they built the rules first, and then based on that, they had their ahkam. Al-qiyas, for example, is one of the rules of Imam Abu Hanifa. Other scholars, they said, no, this is not the right way to derive ahkam. Some scholars, they do not go by the rules, but by al-qiyas, analogical deduction. They're saying simply to say something that Allah never talked about, that this takes the hukm exactly like this case, is saying something that Allah didn't say, right? As other scholars purely using their mind to say that cigarettes, for example, is illegal because it's because of many things. It's like other harmful things that Allah made haram. So either way, they have their own analogy into it, and they have, just like the Sahaba, they put this mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created into the ahkam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to derive and to get the hukm, the final hukm, as far as anything that comes new. Transactions nowadays, is it the same like 50 years ago, 100 years ago? It's completely different. Tens, hundreds of other transactions has been added. 100 years from now, they look back at our transaction. Oh, that was very simple. They will have million of other. All of these things, excuse me, it needs. What is the hukm al-Islam fi kada? What is hukm al-Islam in cloning, in this and that, things that were not even there at this time. So you will have to use the knowledge. What is the closest case to that, or what could be the general rule that this will fall under? It's not knowledge and science in there that is needed to lead to that. It's not right that one scholar is strict, another one is more like, no, they just go by the rules. You might find sometimes the madhab al-Hanbali looks like strict and this thing. That's what it looks to us, but they follow the rules. But in other cases, it's very, what it looks to us is very like, I don't want to say loose, but the opposite could happen with Abu Hanifa in other cases, because they just go by rules. I'll give last two things, Dr. Zakir, and then Brother Dr. Muhammad, because we don't make it lengthy.
So say, for example, if we take a transaction of the car, and I give somebody a car, and we do the transaction. Okay, that transaction is done Islamically valid, or until it goes to registration, the title is changed, which may take 2 months, 3 months, right? So now when you want to say, okay, no, this car is not good, and I want to return it, right? So the transaction is already done, right? So, I mean, what do we go by? Islamically, is it
the Islamic way is, you offered me something, a price, a car, whatever. I accepted that. You give it to me, qabattuha. It's got in Islam in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is final. Again, with some rules, you have a choice for 3 days, or even if you have a defect on it, that is the selling or in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It takes time to register it or anything. That is good, but it doesn't affect that. قياس اجتهاد is purely اجتهاد. قياس analogical deduction is purely اجتهاد. And الاجتهاد is a bigger term that will involve under it القياس, الاستحسان, المصالح المرسلة. Even understanding the Quran and the Sunnah needs اجتهاد. What does this ayah, because منه آيات محكمات وأخرى متشابهات. Some ayat also mean different meaning. So here comes the ijtihad, or this faculty that Allah gives to scholars based on the shar', based on the rules, to tell us that it means that because of such and such. That's the ijtihad. Ijtihad is the umbrella for all of the things that does not have a clear nas or text in it. Umbrella, masalih mursala, it could be so many other things that will come under that, and so many other tools for it if you want.
Establishment of criteria.
Naam?
Establishment of criteria
Establishment of criteria.
for decisions.
Exactly. Setting some rules, and when we get into that, maybe after we finish that, ندرس القواعد الفقهية. It's going to be like a standard that you use to give rules. So these rules, these fundamentals of fiqh, when we study them, we know that those scholars they were much way sophisticated, intelligent than we even thought. And the knowledge itself, we will discover that it's much more kind of fine knowledge, that it is not what we think, that just looking at ayah and thinking it means that. It's not as simple as that. والله تعالى أعلم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نسأل الله عز وجل أن ينفعنا بما علمنا وأن يعلمنا ما ينفعنا وأن يزيدنا وإياكم علما. صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد.